Tonight, hazardous heat, no escape from searing temperatures around the world. The struggle to stay cool.
You can't even go outside really without feeling like you're going to pass out.
And the warnings it may get much worse.
This is, in fact, a dangerous time.
A new route to Canada for Ukrainians seeking sanctuary.
To be with their family here, because Canada is a very safe country.
A long-awaited plan short on details as a previous program expires.
All these people, it means they have less options.
Plus, growing rage over sky-high rental prices.
I went into my bachelor at 500. It's now almost 1,000.
Tenants on strike as Canada's housing crunch takes a harsh toll.
CTV National News with Sandy Ronaldo.
Good evening from Spain to Italy, Greece, and Poland. Europe is frying under an oppressive and relentless heat wave, and it's expected to get worse in the days to come. Countries have been put on cautionary alerts, officials desperate to avoid a repeat of 2003 when more than 70,000 people died. Again today, the Acropolis in Athens shut its doors. Tourists in Italy, places like Rome, told to stay cool and hydrated. Parts of Asia are not exempt, nor is the U.S., with blistering heat from west to east. CTV's Kristen Ashkate begins our coverage.
More than 90 million Americans are under another excruciating heat dome in the southern United States.
It's really crazy. You can't even go outside really without feeling like you're going to pass out.
Tourists tried to stay cool as Las Vegas expected another record-breaking temperature of more than 48 degrees. In the Florida Keys, rising sea temperatures have triggered coral bleaching, further impacting the marine life that rely on the coral reef.
What this means is that now is the time for action. We can't just be observing anymore.
Construction workers in Texas are being hospitalized for heat exhaustion as Houston pushes back against the state introducing a new bill that will do away with required water breaks.
This bill is totally insensitive. It goes contrary to the health and well-being.
Across Europe, what's being dubbed the Cerberus heat wave is causing people to take breaks from the sun. In Venice, one of the 16 Italian cities under red alerts, tourists are burning their skin from just how hot gondolas can get midday. The heat is really harmful for us. It can feel like 50 degrees, he adds. Today, Israel's prime minister was hospitalized after suffering from dehydration. We are experiencing a heat wave in our country, so I request you spend less time under the sun. On Spain's Canary Island, at least 500 people had to be evacuated after 11 homes were destroyed by forest fires fueled by prolonged drought. Meanwhile, crews in Southern California have been battling this out-of-control wildfire since yesterday. Back in Canada, Hudson Bay's sea ice has melted 1 month earlier than expected, which could decline polar bear populations even further. Heat warnings are in place across Canada from here in the East Coast to the Northwest Territories, with officials calling it just another sign of climate change already here. Sandy.
Okay, Kristen, thank you. Well, air quality warnings are in effect tonight for most of Western Canada as a thick plume of smoke stretches from the Pacific coast to the Saskatchewan-Manitoba border. This was the scene over Edmonton's River Valley today as heavy smog obscured the downtown skyline. Now, much of that smoke is wafting in from neighboring BC, where hundreds of wildfires continue to force people from their homes. CTV's Angela Jong reports.
All of northern BC is just so smoky. It's really bad.
Escaping flames, but not the smoke. Jennifer Tolan was forced to evacuate as the Gotcha Lake wildfire ballooned to more than 900 hectares. She made a harrowing 8-hour drive to safety to Fort St. James.
40 kilometers through the bush, just to get to the logging road that was about 167 kilometers to the nearest town. We had to cross 3 wildfires just to get there.
Tolan and her husband own a fishing resort on Elligot Lake. Now the blaze continues to threaten their home and livelihood. They had been sleeping on this barge, unwilling to leave, until the smoke came.
The dogs were having a hard time breathing. We don't have oxygen masks for the dogs.
Her husband stayed behind to protect their property.
If the resort goes up in flames, that's literally all we have. We've worked for that our entire lives.
Flames threatening lives and homes across BC. As of Saturday afternoon, 40 communities have been ordered to flee and 35 communities put on evacuation alert.
So it's absolutely a challenging situation in BC.
But she says help is on the way. Firefighters from Australia will be here this weekend and will be deployed to the northern half of the province. Ottawa also sending support. Officials say military personnel and 2 Griffin helicopters are being deployed Sunday.
We're incredibly grateful for the support from the federal government.
The majority of active wildfires have been sparked by lightning, all 302 of them. Now there are severe thunderstorm watches this weekend for both the central and northeastern parts of the province, in areas already plagued by the raging infernos. Angela Jung, CTV News, Vancouver.
Wildfires are forcing the evacuation of several communities in northern Quebec. The Cree Nation of East Maine is under a state of emergency, and all residents are being urged to leave. Several flights left yesterday and more got out today. The Canadian military is also helping in the evacuation process. Thousands in southern Quebec are still without power 2 days after a ferocious storm system blew through central Canada. As CTV's Olivia O'Malley reports, while hydro crews work to repair damage, residents are still digging through debris.
The scenic drive on Lakeshore Boulevard in Beaconsfield looks extremely different 2 days after the storm. Fallen trees and branches line both sides of the road, and almost every driveway has a pile of greenery ready for collection.
We'll be picking up branches throughout Beaconsfield starting Monday, and we'll probably have to do this for the next week or two.
Beaconsfield Mayor George Burrell says no injuries were reported, but a few homes are damaged. Franco Tirabasso is throwing away bags of insulation. Part of his roof was destroyed in the storm.
We had damage because it lifted up the shingles. The wind was an amazing wind. I mean, you can't imagine how terrible it was. We're lucky we weren't at home.
A few blocks away, Renata Heidersdorf is relying on help from friends.
We're trying to save whatever we can save.
Her backyard, featured in magazines, sustained major damage. She says the biggest loss is her 13-year-old koi fish.
They had names. They were like pets. They came when I called them. And suddenly to see them go is terrible.
Meantime, anyone hoping to cool off at Montreal's public beaches is out of luck. Swimming is off limits due to poor water quality post-storm.
I mean, you can still lay down on the beach and warm up, but yeah, it's a little disappointing.
Hydro-Quebec says power has been restored to more than 95% of its affected clients. However, there are pockets in Beaconsfield that are still in the dark.
Most of them should get electricity back today, but latest we got from Hydro is there will be at least 80 users that will not have electricity by the end of the day.
Burrell says it's important to be patient and reminds residents to steer clear of power lines that have fallen. Olivia O'Malley, CTV News, Montreal.
Power outages and damage to infrastructure in South Korea after days of heavy rain, and that is not the worst of it. Landslides and flash floods have led to at least 31 deaths. This is video of rescue crews wading through high water to help a trapped family. More than 5,500 people have been forced to flee to higher ground. The South Korean Prime Minister has asked for help from the military. Today is the last day for Ukrainians fleeing the war to apply for special emergency visas and get help coming to this country. Millions have escaped since the Russian invasion, with 166,000 Ukrainians arriving in Canada over the past 16 months. Now, that door closed today. Now the federal government is opening a new family reunification program. But as CTV's Kevin Gallagher reports, the plan is short on details.
This Welcome Center for Ukrainians helps those driven from their homes by war adjust to new life in Canada. Most used a special immigration visa to come here, a program that ended today.
So now all these families, all these people, it means they have less options.
More than 1 million Ukrainians applied for Canada's emergency visa, offered after Russia's invasion last year. Only about 20% of those applicants have actually arrived. No new applications are being accepted, but those with approved documents can still travel here until the end of March.
The war isn't over, nor should the program be over.
To replace it, the government plans to create a family reunification path to permanent residence starting October 23, 2023. It says to qualify, Ukrainian nationals must be in Canada with temporary resident status and have one or more family members in Canada.
I'd love to have my sister's family here. I'd love to have my father family here and my mom also here and my granny.
It's not clear how many Ukrainian families this will help, as most of the details have yet to be released.
It's certainly a fairly last-minute addition into terms of new information for what happens next.
Some aid organizations have been critical of the lack of support offered to Ukrainians arriving on emergency visas, as many rely on food banks and struggle with the high cost of living.
There's an incredible disconnect between, what the elected officials show up at press conferences and say they're going to do and what actually gets done.
Ukrainians here on this expiring emergency visa can stay for up to 3 years and have access to language training as well as work and study permits, something community organizations say will be essential for this new family reunification program as well, Sandy.
All right, thank you, Kevin. Now, finding housing and services for refugees has become an even bigger issue, with cities struggling to meet the need. We've seen it in Toronto over the past few weeks, migrants sleeping on the streets. Now in Calgary, a settlement centre is dealing with a shortage of funding and an impact on services.
That we would be able to negotiate and we'd be able to continue to keep people on. As the days went by, we started to realize that that might not be the case.
Toronto's already overcrowded shelters have been turning migrants away.
Conditions outside the shelter are absolutely devastating. Over the past 2 weeks, we've seen an unprecedented amount of rainfall. Imagine sleeping out in those conditions, and that is what's happening now.
Ottawa's been asked to help Toronto deal with the crisis. The housing crisis is also taking a toll, and not just on those new to the country. Rental prices have simply never been this high. Vancouver is listed in a new report as the priciest city for renters, an average of almost $3,000 last month, followed by Burnaby and Toronto. And that is where anger erupted today at 2 buildings as tenants push back against rent increases landlords say are warranted because of costs they are facing. CTV's Alison Hurst reports.
Tenants are fed up.
We're tired of having to pay overpriced rent.
We've experienced increases up to 25% in 2019.
Anthony Allow lives with his wife and 2-year-old.
Crazy, unfair rent increases that is making a lot of us decide whether we're going to be paying our rent on time or maybe having food on our table.
Elizabeth Thompson says it's hard to manage on a pension.
I went into my bachelor at $500. It's now almost $1,000. So it's crazy.
Beverly Henry is frustrated by the AGI's above-grade rent increases, coupled with the loss of building amenities.
We can't use our balconies. We can't use the pool, but it's in our rent and we are paying for it.
Their tenant union says more than 300 units are participating in the rent strike.
People have seen rent increases that are 3 or 4 times higher than rent control.
The landlord says in part, 40% of all its units are now affordable and exempt from any AGI increases. The march went to the local MPP and federal housing minister's offices with the goal of sitting down with their landlord.
We're hoping that after today's rally, they're going to sit down and negotiate a real agreement with tenants.
And they hope government representatives will lend their voices. Alison Hurst, CTV News, Toronto.
Coming up after the break.
Come wake our sisters' souls up. Come help us find them.
A tense showdown over a landfill search, plus a campaign of kindness, life through the lens of Brady Harrison. Standoff at a Winnipeg landfill site today. A group of protesters, entrenched and defiant, refusing to leave despite a court order to stop obstructing the entrance. They want more done to find missing and murdered Indigenous women. As CTV's Taylor Brock reports, support is spreading outside the province.
Protesters at Brady Road landfill are on edge Saturday, one day after the city of Winnipeg delivered an injunction ordering them to clear the roadway.
If I have to stand there to get arrested to make a change or to bring any kind of awareness for the betterment of our people, of our MMIWG, then I will.
Melissa Morisseau has been at the site since the blockade first went up more than a week ago, protesting the province's decision not to support a search of Prairie Green landfill. That's where Mercedes Myron and Morgan Harris's remains are believed to have been dumped.
We don't want confrontation here. We don't want aggression here. You know, we're passive and everyone's welcome.
The group's ability to get to the blockade has been hampered. On Saturday, construction crews paved the road leading to the protest site, blocking the main entrance and slowing traffic to the other landfill entrance. According to the city's website, construction is scheduled to continue until Monday. Meantime, Morisseau says they aren't leaving.
Supporting the families of our MMIWG in Winnipeg and all across Turtle Island, all across Canada, all across the States.
That support is being echoed in Vancouver.
It's the same kind of colonial violence that affects people here on the coast as it is in the prairies, as it is in Ontario and on the other coasts as well, right?
Tracy Fiddler is calling on others to join them in Winnipeg, disappointed more people weren't at Brady on Saturday.
Come beat the heartbeat of our people. Come wake our sisters' souls up. Come help us find them.
The group plans to stay until Prairie Green landfill is searched. Taylor Brock, CTV News, Winnipeg.
Wildlife officials have removed a cougar from a BC provincial park after it killed a pet dog and showed signs of stalking humans. The campsite at Clear Creek near Chilliwack was reopened this afternoon with campers allowed back. Some aren't worried now that the cougar is gone.
We were actually very concerned last night when they told me that there was cougar, but since I think I can trust them if they said so. They said that the cougar was gone. I think it should be fine.
Campers are being told to stay back and not engage if there's another cougar sighting. Still ahead, Alberta's opioid crisis.
She died a very preventable death.
The unexpected side effect on organ donations. Tonight, a closer look at the sobering reality of the unprecedented opioid crisis in Alberta. The alarming number of overdose deaths is having a direct impact on organ donations in the province. Here's CTV's Tim Brooke now with the numbers.
Zoe died from a drug overdose.
She loved the beach. She loved traveling. She had an amazing laugh, and she should be here with me. She should be here with us.
Hers is a sad story, but it carries some light. Her family made the decision to donate 5 of Zoe's organs. It's a tough choice for anyone to unexpectedly make, but one that's more common than you may think. Last year, 34 of Alberta's 97 deceased donors, about 35%, died from drug poisonings. In 2019, that number was just 9 of 69, or 13%. It comes as 613 families grieve the loss of a loved one in the first 4 months of this year. April was the deadliest month in Alberta since records began in 2016.
She died a very preventable death.
Many are calling for a change to the provincial drug crisis approach, which is almost solely about recovery.
There's not really any evidence to suggest that this recovery approach is going to have any impact on what is fundamentally a drug supply toxicity issue.
The Minister of Mental Health and Addiction said no to an interview request. Dan Williams instead sent a statement that promises to increase treatment capacity. That's not what harm reduction advocates want to hear. They believe the province's laser focus on recovery is dangerous and leading to more stories like Zoe's.
We need to start listening to the people actually impacted and giving them things that are actually going to support them and taking our morality out of it. This is a medical crisis.
Tim Brooke, CTV News, Calgary.
Word also from the Calgary Stampede today that a horse was injured during the chuck wagon races Friday night and had to be euthanized. Animal rights activists want the Stampede to focus on music and Western heritage as opposed to the rodeo. High above the grandstand, a giant banner today with protesters calling the event cruel. The Stampede changed the rules after 6 horses died in 2019. After the break, living up to a promise.
I'm actually doing something to help the environment.
Something this 12-year-old has done for years. You know the saying, seeing the world through rose-tinted glasses? It refers to people who view everything in a positive light. We leave you tonight with the story of a preteen who exemplifies the expression by taking something negative and making it positive. CTV's Adam Sawatsky introduces us to Brady.
Despite what they say about rose-colored glasses,
And I absolutely just instantly love them.
Brady Harrison is choosing to view the world through them.
They make me feel really happy. They make me feel confident.
They make the 12-year-old, whose pronouns are they, them, keep pursuing a mission that began
Hi, I'm Brady.
when the then 3-year-old made a promise to the planet.
We'll start helping nature.
Brady was inspired to start helping nature after meeting an ecological mascot and earning a badge for learning about local watersheds.
And that was kind of the first time that you could see the pride that Brady was taking in helping the environment.
Brady started asking for environmental books for their birthday and launched a club in grade 1 dubbed the Garbage Grenaders.
It actually felt really, really nice to know that I'm actually doing something to help the environment.
And Brady kept eliminating litter during their recesses almost daily through every year of elementary school.
And that was a really cool thing to see.
And by the time Brady reached middle school, they expanded their acts of kindness to include people and saved up money to support a popcorn fundraiser for students who struggled to attend field trips.
I took $84.71 and I bought 34 bags of popcorn.
And after achieving their donation goal, gave the bags away.
Making 34 other people's day by getting free popcorn.
But then Brady heard about kids with cancer losing their hair. And although they wanted to donate theirs, struggled with the thought of cutting what had been growing for 5 years and was such a big part of their identity.
I was scared that it wouldn't have that kind of piece of me anymore.
But after months of deliberations, Brady faced their fear and ended up donating 5 locks of hair to Wigs for Kids.
It felt really, really good. I was really happy about it.
Because despite what they say about rose-colored glasses, Brady does see the world's challenges and chooses to view them as opportunities.
It's not too late. You can still help the world in really magnificent ways.
Adam Sawatsky, CTV News, Colwood.
Sure can. That's our newscast for this Saturday. Thank you for sharing your time with us. I'm Sandy Ronaldo. Good night. Until tomorrow.